Plants and the animals that love them. A slow, thoughtful walk through a forest preserve reveals a lot that is going on. First, of course, you notice the plants. There are the trees that give the forest its distinction. Most woodlands contain several kinds of trees. Beneath them, you'll see the younger trees and the shrubs, the former biding their time until one of the elders falls, signaling the race to determine which younger tree will grow to fill that new gap in the canopy. In the spring, that forest is filled with wildflowers, blooming most prolifically in the early season before the trees leaf out to shade the ground. Looking at the leaves of all the plants, from wildflowers to trees, you may remark how fresh and clean and green they all look. If you return in the fall, however, in most years you will notice how the leaves have become transformed. Many have holes, gouges out of their edges, and various other spots, blotches, and other disfiguring marks. Some leaves, some entire plants are missing completely. Such changes are the work of plant-eating animals. Most kinds of trees have an impressive list of animals that love them for dinner. At least 13 insect species and a fungus make their living from the leaves of black or sugar maples at Meacham Grove and Maple Grove forest preserves. Gouges chewed out of leaf edges usually are the work of moth or butterfly caterpillars. Various blotches are created by leaf miners. Insect larvae, again often moth caterpillars, so tiny that they fit between the upper and lower surfaces of the leaf, eating the thin tissues between. Irregular blotch-like mines under the leaf's top cuticle are produced by one species of tiny caterpillar. Tent-like mines on the underside of the leaf are the work of a completely different kind of caterpillar. Two species of minute Caloptilia moths start out making tiny tadpole-shaped mines in their youngest stage, but then the caterpillars migrate out to the leaf tips and sew these into cone-like folded enclosures, scraping the insides for food until their development is complete. A fourth mine type, in the form of a zigzag line, probably is the work of yet another moth. Tiny dots, which may be white or black, usually are the work of sucking insects, such as lace bugs. These stick their beaks into the leaves and draw out tiny bits of tissue, much as a mosquito relishes the blood of a bird or mammal. The first maple leaf consumers in the spring are tortricids, a group of moths whose caterpillars bite through the main veins of the leaf, causing it to wilt. The caterpillar lives within the shelter so formed, eating part of it to support development. A final damage type, in the form of a circular discoloration, is more common in cool, wet years, as it is the sign of a fungus colony. With so many consumers, it may seem surprising that we have any maple trees at all. It turns out that these insects are themselves tasty to other animals. Some are larger predators like birds and mice. Others, parasitic wasps and flies, are smaller. Ecological research has found that the interactions among these species are complex. Food web stability is helped most by consumers that switch from one prey to another, concentrating on the ones that are most abundant. So much diversity, all based on one plant species. Multiply that by the many kinds of plants in the forest, and you perhaps can see how the study of ecology is so interesting to some. Each kind of plant is the foundation of what ecologists call a component community. Back at Meacham Grove, the Solomon's plume, a late spring wildflower, is host to a sawfly caterpillar and a leaf miner. Enchanter's nightshade, a summer blooming annual, is eaten by the relatively large caterpillar of the reddish speckled dart moth, the small inchworm caterpillar of a day-flying moth, and a leaf beetle. Though many of these insects specialize on one kind of plant, others are more generalists. For example, coppery underwing caterpillars at Meacham have been found eating leaves of red elm, bitternut hickory, white ash, basswood, and Virginia creeper. consumers of woody plant leaves commonly have a broader diet than do consumers of herbaceous plants. This is because the various woody plants typically defend themselves with the same class of chemical deterrents, called tannins. Any animal that can eat one kind of tannin-defended leaf can eat others. The various wildflowers each have their own specialized chemical defense, which forces more specialization in their consumers. Again, all these plant eaters have their own specialized parasites, along with generalized vertebrate predators, collectively forming a stable ecosystem through population checks and balances. What happens when these checks fail? When, for instance, a consumer comes along without its own limiting parasites or predators? An example at Meacham Grove is a plant called the trailing strawberry bush. Its main specialist insect consumer is the colony-forming small caterpillar of an ermine moth. In the 1980s, trailing strawberry bush colonies were large and common at Meacham Grove. Then along came the ermine moths, which in the space of a few years increased to such numbers the trailing strawberry bush colonies were decimated, some wiped out entirely, all cut back to tiny fragments. They have not recovered to this day. The previous example was limited to one tiny specialist insect and its devastated host. What do you think might happen if an extreme generalist capable of eating almost any of the plants came along without its own consumers to hold it back? What if, in addition, this were a large animal capable of eating large volumes of plants? Such, in fact, has happened. The animal is the white-tailed deer. We all enjoy having deer on our preserves, but they returned from regional extinction without the wolves, mountain lions, and other suite of predators that once held their numbers down. They demonstrably have threatened the many component communities, the plants and all the many animals they support, from bugs to birds. To determine the impact of the deer population on our ecosystems, Forest Preserve District ecologists collect vegetation data using many methods. Small, fenced areas throughout the district exclude deer from browsing inside the fence, allowing ecologists to assess the impact deer are having on the ecosystem. Besides collecting vegetation data, the number of deer vehicle collisions is also evaluated. In addition to these measures, biologists conduct aerial counts of deer in winter, when obscuring leaves are gone and snow provides a backdrop against which deer stand out. All of these data from the many preserves allow an assessment of where deer have become so abundant that they threaten ecological integrity. The Forest Preserve District sends the data to the state of Illinois along with a request to remove enough deer from overpopulated preserves to bring their numbers down to a sustainable level. As a result of the district's efforts, ecosystem recovery has been documented and sustained in many preserves where active deer management has occurred.